Excited. My guest today, this is her debut novel that I got an ARC for and read. I'm really excited about it. I actually got a list of books and it was one of the ones that jumped out to me. Everybody knows I love a mystery, I love a thriller. And this one did not disappoint. And although we are recording this earlier in the springtime, the book comes out technically today, July 1st. It is called Party of Liars. Please welcome author Kelsey Cox. Kelsey, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Give everybody a synopsis of Party of Liars.
This is the part I should have practiced and just a bunch. Party of Liars is a lavish Sweet 16 set in the thrown in like a rumored to be haunted mansion in the Texas Hill Country, and it ends in a death. And so the book tells about the kind of 24 hours leading up to that that someone falls from the balcony, and so it tells the 24 hours leading up to that and kind of centers on four women and how their stories entangle.
Mm-hmm. Now, because it's in multiple points of view, and not only is it in multiple points of view, but you have it told through multiple ages, like each point of view is a different age, each woman is a different age, different background, different connection to the other people at the Sweet 16. I guess first and foremost, how did the idea come to you, and was it the plot or the characters that came first?
I guess it was both in a way. So I've been writing for a long time, and this is my debut, but I've been trying to be a published author for a long time. And when this story came to me, I'd gotten my agent with one book, and it went on submission and it didn't sell. And then that was right about the time I was having my kids. I have a 6-year-old and a 5-year-old. And then I was kind of discouraged by that, and I was trying to write, but it was like I had no time. It was the pandemic and like two babies, and my kids are 14 months apart. So it was a lot. And I thought, why am I doing this? I was working, I used to adjunct teach. I would teach basically college freshman courses online. And so I'm like piecing together some kind of salary with no health insurance. And I thought, so I like very dramatically told my sisters, I quit writing, at least for now. Like, I'm not going to write anymore. It just feels like I have no free time to be doing this. It just feels like homework that nobody cares about this work that I'm doing, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so it was the first time in my life really that I can remember that I wasn't writing, and it lasted about like 1 or 2 weeks. And so I was like so relieved and happy and had all this supposed free time for 2 weeks maybe. And then I was feeding my girls lunch, and I was on the floor at my mom's house, and I was cleaning up like peas that they spilled all over the floor. And so I was on my hands and knees. And for some reason, this entire story just came into my mind. I was like, I knew the twist. I knew who these four women would be and kind of what their secrets would be, how they would be intertwined. And for some reason, I thought this will happen at a Sweet 16. And so it was kind of both. Like, it was the
Yeah.
women, but it was also the twist. So.
Interesting. Okay. And so are you a plotter and a planner, I guess, is the other question. Because how did you write each of these or tell the story and kind of planned it out then?
I have always thought I was a plotter. So this book deal was a 2-book deal. So this had a second book, and it was the first time I've ever had to write on deadline, you know.
Okay.
My publisher said, write another book in a year. And I thought, I've never written that fast. But I thought, well, I'm a plotter. I can figure this out, So I figured it all out, this outline, and then the writing just felt really dead. And I thought, well, maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm like a closet pantser. And I didn't know all along. So I think
Yeah.
a little bit of both. Like whenever I come up with, especially a mystery thriller, which is what I've primarily been writing for a long time, I do come up with a twist first, so I know like where we're going, and then I have to have the characters, but then there has to be some freedom of letting them act.
Yeah.
Like I don't know exactly how they're gonna get there, or how they're gonna figure things out. or what's going to happen to them along the way, or even like how they're going to grow. I just like hope that
Yeah.
they do. So I'm a little bit of both. But yeah, I knew that I wanted to write. I had just become a mom, and I've always had a really matriarchal family. My mom comes from nine. So she's one of nine kids, and seven of them are girls or women. So
Mhm.
uh, I grew up with like this really big, loud, female-centered kind of family
Mhm.
led by my really strong grandmother. And when I became a mom, it like gave me this whole other appreciation for them. I think I always appreciated them, but it gave me a different
Mhm.
perspective. And myself as a mother, and then my daughters. And so I think I wanted to write about four women that were of very different ages, uh,
Yeah.
kind of the different experiences of a woman throughout life.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if that answered your question, but
Yeah. No, it's interesting that you start with the twist. Like that's so interesting. And then having to kind of let them go where they may, but knowing exactly you kind of know where you're ending. So that's nice, right?
yeah, I think
Now,
so. We talked about this a little bit before, but it helps me to know like what everybody's motive or
mm,
secret is, what they're hiding or what they're planning,
mhm,
because then I can lay the clues as I go, I know there are
yeah.
mystery writers that like don't know who killed the person and then they find out
Yeah.
back and revise a lot. And I definitely revise a lot, but I think knowing kind of what everyone's secret is helps me lay those clues organically as
Mhm.
I write the first draft.
Mhm. Now, you do have four different, very different women whose points of view you write through. Um, and I think it's interesting because they're not the only strong characters within this novel. Like, so for those who are listening, the four women are Danny, who is the new wife of the birthday girl, Sophie's dad, Ethan. The ex-wife, Kim, is the other point of view. Then Sophie, the birthday girl's best friend, Michaela, and then Danny and Ethan's new baby's nanny, Orla. And it's a very complicated family, right? And everybody plays a very big role, even though it's only told through these four women's points of views. Sophie is a very big character in this. Ethan's a character in this. They're Danny and Ethan's friends and those who were friends with Kim and Ethan when they were married. Like, and maybe it's because of the party, which I think is a big part of it, right? Like this birthday party brings together all these people that are entwined in each other's lives in some way. And you did a really good job of making every single person a strong character, even if it's not told through their point of view, which I find really interesting. Like I know exactly who each one of them is by the end of the book.
Thank you. I think I something that I encountered really early on in my writing was it was always easier for me to write the side characters. Like the main characters were the ones that and I think it's because a side character would start as like almost like a cartoon of a person. You're just like she's the nosy neighbor, like she's the
Mm,
nanny. But then they gain like humanity as you write them, but they kind of start with that seed of what a person is. And I think it's kind of true when we meet people. Like people have like one core thing that they identify with as well,
mm,
um, but then people are just naturally complex, whereas when I used to try to write main characters, it was like they were like this Mary Sue kind of just bland, like nothing.
mm,
And so I think with this book, I really did kind of start even my main characters as like those cartoon, like Danny's the postpartum losing her mind new mom, which is what
mm,
time. And then Kim's like the bitter ex-wife, and Michaela's this lovesick teen, and Orla's a creepy nanny. And then they just kind of like grew complexity from there. So I don't know.
mhm. Yeah. And we talked about that a little bit before we started filming when I was asking, spoiler questions, but I think you did a really good job of having each one, yeah, kind of play that stereotype or is they start as a character you think they are, and I think they grow or more of their story throughout their character growth is like shows you so many different dimensions of them, and you did a really good job of showing so many different things. Like I said before we started recording, I told you what my guesses were as I was reading about what would happen or who was the one that dies or whatever it was. And it was different by the end. And I was constantly like had a different, there was just a new twist or a new turn along the way that changed my perspective, which was really fun.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's why I like multiple point of view a
Mm,
lot, because the multiple point of view allows you to see, you can like hate a character from one person's point of view, and then you get their interior, and hopefully it's hard to hate anyone when you're really inside their mind.
yeah,
I feel like that's what I love about reading, or about characters in general in other people's books, being able to get like
yeah,
empathy. You meet
yeah,
people that are different than you, or people whose actions you don't understand on the surface. So,
yeah. I will say, I think that's a part of it. Like the growth that you built with these characters, I didn't, none of them were unlikable. Like every single one was so human by the end. And anything that you didn't understand, you got some understanding for, empathy for, sympathy for by the end. And I think that was really fun to kind of see.
thanks. Yeah, that's what I'm always hoping for, because I think, like, especially with mystery thriller, you can't, like, people have to make mistakes. The characters have to make mistakes for fun things to happen. And I am always just like on a human level interested why people do the things they do. Why do I do the things I do?
Yeah.
And so, like, trying to figure that out about people, but it means that those characters are going to sometimes do like unlikable things or think unlikable things.
Yeah.
And so hopefully I'm able to give them that, like, I'm able to portray them in a way that makes the reader empathetic towards them, even if they
Mhm.
still disagree with what they've done.
Yeah. Now, do you see yourself or have you written in other genres, or is it mainly kind of mysteries and thrillers?
It is mysteries and thrillers for, so I wrote a, the first novel I ever finished was a fantasy romance in high school. But that was like 20 years ago. I was probably 17. And so I wrote that because I loved fantasy when I was younger. I read like every genre when I was
Hmm.
younger. And then I ended up going to college. I was just going to be an English teacher because that was, I didn't know what else to do. Like, I just liked reading. I liked class. I was good at school, but I wasn't really good at anything else. Um, and so I was going to do that. And I saw a flyer like in the English department hallway for introduction to creative writing. And I thought, I didn't even
Oh,
know you could take a class in creative
yeah.
writing. So I took that class. I had two amazing professors who are also published authors. Their names are Christine and John McDermott. So they were a married couple. And they really, I had like one of my poems in that class. Christine wrote, like, see me after class. And when I stayed after class, she said, basically, like, this is good. Like, you are talented. And it was like life changing for me, because to have someone that like wasn't my mom, who just loves everything I do, tell me that it was good. And who knows if it even was, or if she just knew that I cared, and was a great teacher.
Yeah.
But having somebody tell me that, like, I carried that until now. Like,
Mm,
so anyway, I wrote then when I ended up going to grad school because those professors told me to, and I didn't know what else to do. So I got an MFA, and you're kind of writing literary stuff, and that's kind of not a problem, but like a critique people have of MFA programs. It's kind of like a no genre allowed area. So
oh,
yeah, so we're reading a lot of literary stuff, and I was writing literary stuff. So I wrote like a literary fiction book for my thesis in grad school, and that was the first time I queried. So I think my first query to an agent, which is, if anyone doesn't know, is when you send out to try to get an agent with your book, was probably 2011, and it was a literary fiction. Didn't get the agent, and then I thought, I am terrible at plot. Like, I need the constraints of a genre, and I went back to mystery thriller. And then I had been away from mystery for so long that I had kind of had to reorient myself. And the first book that I read that like captured me was Gillian Flynn's Sharp Objects. And
Right.
it's probably like the year that Gone Girl came out, but it might have been like right before it did. And I thought, I read that book and I thought, this is what I want to write. This is what I want to read. So,
Hmm.
so since then, since like Gone Girl came out, it's been all
Yeah.
psychological.
And who's the first person who gets to read your writing?
It right now it is definitely my husband. Like he, especially with the book two, he was like almost annoyingly like every day I'd come home and he'd be like, "Send me what you wrote," because he like really wanted
Aw,
that deadline.
that's so nice.
So like workshop it at night and then I'd like go back and so um
Yeah.
definitely my husband. But it is often my cousin. My cousin also writes. She's a published author. She writes like fantasy romance.
Ooh, very, very like perfect timing for her right now.
Yeah, yeah. So her name's Jessica Leek, but and then she's writing now under a pen name, I believe is Nora Carmody. But we've like had this dream together since we were like eighth, ninth grade, and we would like
Gosh.
share our stuff. So she's definitely one of my first readers, and then my sisters.
Oh, that's so nice though. So how do you feel, or at what point do you let people read it? Like, is your husband reading it chapter by chapter? And does that ever influence you as a mystery reader that somebody, because you and I were talking before the recording when I was telling you my opinion of the spoilers and who I thought did it and who I, you know, and I can't say obviously, but you were like, oh, somebody else in my life thought that same thing or this or that. So does that ever influence you as a mystery writer?
Um, with my husband, he always knows like everything I'm trying to do. So he knows the twist
Okay.
and we're kind of working on it together and he reads it like as I'm writing it. Or that's at least that just started with book two though. With Party of Liars, that was not the case. He didn't read I didn't show anybody for a long time. Not a
Right.
long, but a little bit. And then the way I wrote Party of Liars, the way I structured it, I love like a TV miniseries, you know? I just feel like we've been like spoiled with good TV for the past like 20 years. And I've always thought like a limited miniseries is a better adaptation often than a movie of a book. So I was like, I'm just gonna structure it like a miniseries. I'm just gonna write like episodes. So they're not like it doesn't say like episode one when you read Party of Liars, but in my mind they are episodes. And
Mhm.
that helped me be like, okay, well, in each episode, like if you had an episode of a show, in each episode, like we need to see each of the main characters like at least once. We need to end on some kind of cliffhanger. So hopefully that'll keep like the pacing kind of going. We need to like touch on each theme at least once. So with my sisters and my cousin, I sent it to them like episode by episode. So I like get to the episode, I'd
Smart.
polish it up, and I'd send it to them. And so by the time I got to the first draft, it was like a pretty polished first draft because I
Mhm.
had worked on each episode. I don't know if that
Yeah.
makes
No,
sense.
that totally does. As I was reading it, I was like, Apple TV or HBO would have a field day with this, like Big Little Lies style. Like you could really do so much with it because you could also give enough backstory too for certain characters. It would be perfect. So it does read. I wonder if that's why it also reads really well. Like I thoroughly you balance the character development and the plot very See, again, well. Thank you so much for being here and giving me any ounce of your time to chat about this book. It has been lovely.
Thank you so much. It's been so much fun. Thank you.
And everybody stay tuned because she will be back for a book club episode later this week.